There was a big fire at Company X. When I heard about it, I felt like I had been hit on the head with a hammer because that's where my husband works. I hoped he was okay. I called him, praying he had escaped from the fire. The phone rang, and then I heard his voice say, "Hello. Max, where are you? Are you safe?" I was so relieved to hear him that I spoke loudly. My husband seemed annoyed and said, "Why are you talking so loud?" "I'm at work. Don't call me while I'm working." And then he hung up. Even though Max wasn't involved in the fire, his response was strange. My name is Mama. I'm 32 years old, and I'm a nurse. Work is a big part of my life. I got married 3 years ago when I was 29. I felt lucky to get married just before turning 30. I met my husband Max through a friend. We got along well and have enjoyed our married life in his company housing. We've been married for 3 years but don't have children yet. I believe we can build a happy family together. Max can be self-centered sometimes, but overall, he is kind and good. He shows his love to me and I feel safe with him. Recently, my husband has been very busy with work and even works on his days off. He seems tired and doesn't pay much attention to me at home. After dinner, he sits on the sofa in front of the TV, but he doesn't really watch it. Instead, he looks at his phone with the TV on in the background. When I talk to him, he just says things like, "Yeah," or "Oh." At first, I thought I might have said something to upset him, but then I decided he was just tired from his busy work schedule. Because of this, I made sure to take him lunch and prepare dinner every day. I tried to make our meals nutritious and well-balanced. Then one day, something strange happened. The day before, a coworker called and asked me to switch from the night shift to the day shift. I had originally told my husband that I would be working the night shift, so I planned to let him know about the change. But I got busy and ended up emailing him on the same day. I told him in the email that I had switched to the day shift and would make dinner and wait for him. But I didn't get a reply back. I thought he was busy at work, so I focused on my own work. But even after I finished work, he still hadn't responded. He used to reply quickly, even when he was busy, and sometimes used emojis in his texts. This time, he just read my message and didn't reply. Is he working too hard, or is this just what happens after 3 years of marriage? Feeling a bit sad, I stopped at the supermarket on my way home and bought some ingredients to cook a nutritious dinner for my husband. It was very cold today, so I decided to make a warm one-pot dish. I cut up the ingredients and waited for my husband to come home so I could start cooking right away. But no matter how long I waited, he didn't come home. He usually arrives home at 7 p.m., but when he finally got home, it was already 9 p.m. "Welcome back. You're home late. Did you do some overtime work?" "Oh yeah. But did you have to switch to the day shift suddenly?" Yeah. A coworker had an emergency. I was a bit late in letting you know." "I see. Well, I guess you couldn't help it, but it's a little annoying that you told me on the same day. I might have had plans to go out for a drink or something." "Oh, you're right. I'm sorry." I said that and turned on the stove for the pot. "Oh, you haven't eaten yet?" "No, I thought I'd wait for you." "Well, thanks, but you don't have to wait for me next time." I felt a bit sad hearing that. I waited for the hot pot to boil. When it started to simmer, I served my husband's portion and then mine. I was starving after waiting so long and enjoyed the hot pot, thinking it was delicious. But then I noticed that my husband wasn't eating much. "What's wrong? You don't seem to be eating much." He looked a bit confused and said, "Oh yes," then added, "Actually, I was working late, and a junior colleague bought me a rice bowl, so I'm not really hungry." Okay. You should have told me that beforehand. I could have made something else or waited to cook." He seemed to notice that I was a bit upset. "All right then, put my portion in the fridge. I'll eat it tomorrow morning," he said, trying to make me feel better. Then he lay down on the couch. A few minutes later, he got up and said, "I'm going for a walk." "That's unusual," I said. He said, "I haven't been getting enough exercise lately, and since I've been working late, I need a change of pace." Then he started getting ready to go out. I felt a bit lonely sitting at the table eating the hot pot by myself, so I put my portion in the fridge too. I thought I might have eaten too much and realized my husband and I haven't spent much time together lately. I decided to join him for the walk. But when I asked, he said it wasn't good for me to walk right after eating, and that he wanted to be alone for a longer walk. So he went out by himself. I started to feel suspicious about his behavior, so I decided to follow him secretly. My suspicion turned out to be correct. As soon as I started following him, even though I tried to call out, he walked quickly and energetically. He stopped in front of a park, which is a bit far from our house. He looked around and seemed to be talking to someone on his phone. I wondered who he was talking to. A few minutes later, a car pulled up and my husband walked over and started chatting with the person in the driver's seat. It was dark, so I moved closer to the car. I could see the driver more clearly now. She had long curly hair and glossy lipstick. It was a woman, and she was laughing happily as my husband got into the passenger seat. It hit me, he must be having an affair. By the time I thought this, the car had already driven away. I stood there stunned for a while. Then my husband sent me a text saying he had run into someone he knew and would be home a little late. Someone he knew? I didn't believe him at all. He had said he wasn't hungry because he had already eaten, but he didn't come home until after 2 a.m. He didn't even notice I was awake. He seemed tipsy and went to the kitchen for a glass of water. Lately, he's been working late only when I'm on the day shift, and it's been harder to match our days off. Yesterday he worked overtime, and today he's working on his day off. But is it really work? I can't stop wondering if he's seeing a woman I saw. I decided to look up detective agencies online and ended up requesting an investigation from the most reliable one. I felt guilty about investigating behind my husband's back, but if nothing was going on, I could trust him again. So I went ahead with it. Waiting for the results was really tough. My husband was as quiet as ever, and every time I saw him, I thought about the woman I had seen. I wanted to find out the truth as quickly as possible. Then something surprising happened. It was Saturday, and I was busy working the day shift as usual. My husband was also working on his day off. I was focused on my work, thinking that since we were both at work, I didn't need to worry about anything else. Then I heard sirens in the distance. The sound got closer and louder. Just when I thought they were passing by, I heard more sirens. It wasn't just one fire truck, but 2 or 3 more. This meant there was a big fire nearby. I felt uneasy and worried. 2 of my colleagues, who had gone to the hospital room, returned with serious expressions. They were talking about the fire. "You mean the fire?" I asked. "Yes, that's right. Apparently, there was a big fire at Company X." My heart sank because that's where my husband worked. It felt like I had been hit on the head with a hammer. I quickly explained the situation to my colleagues and called my husband to make sure he was okay. I hoped he was safe. I called his phone, praying that he had escaped the fire. Despite our recent lack of communication, I always saw him off in the morning. The call rang, and then I heard his voice say, "Hello. Max, where are you? Are you safe?" I was so relieved to reach him that my voice got louder. My husband sounded annoyed and said, "What's the matter with you? You're talking so loud." "I'm at work. Don't call me while I'm working." Then he hung up the call. At least my husband wasn't involved in the fire, but his response was odd. With such a big fire and several fire trucks at the scene, there was no way he could be working as usual. Did that mean he didn't actually go to work? And why was he so cold when I was just worried about him? I was growing angrier with him. Maybe I had been seeing him off just so he could meet another woman since we got married. So I made a decision. I would leave the house. When I got home, I immediately started packing my things. I found the results from the detective agency in the mailbox. They had just arrived. I decided to take the results with me as I left. My parents helped me pack, and I arranged for the movers to come right away. My husband didn't seem to know I was aware of the truth. He didn't contact me that night, and I guessed he was with his lover. I packed up many of my things, furniture and appliances I had from before we married. The room looked almost empty and deserted. As I looked around, I realized I had no emotional attachment to this place anymore. For now, I moved my things to my parents' house and began searching for a new place of my own. The next day, my husband finally called. "Hey, what's going on? Most of your stuff is gone." Of course I moved out. "What? What are you talking about? When are you coming back? What about my food and the house chores?" I was shocked by his reaction. Is that all he thinks about? During our conversation, I was reminded again of the fire at his company. It was clear he was with his affair partner instead of at work. The anger surged within me. "Why don't you find another woman to handle that for you?" "Huh? What are you talking about? You were with a woman named Linda today, weren't you?" Huh? What are you talking about? I was at the office. Oh, at the office? How long did you work today? It was a busy day. Even though it was my day off, I stayed late. I see. That's why I was so surprised you moved out. Why don't you stop lying already? Huh? You lied about going to work, didn't you? I wasn't lying. I was working. What's going on? How could you work until the evening when there was a fire at the office during the day? Huh? When I called you earlier, there were several fire trucks at your company responding to a fire. I was calling to check if you were okay. You told me not to call you while you were working, yet you acted like there was no fire. Well, and I have evidence from a detective agency about your affair. There's no way you can deny it. All further communication will be through my lawyer, and I will be seeking alimony. Oh no? My husband kept begging for forgiveness and apologizing, but I no longer have any feelings for him. I'm sorry, but there's no way to fix this. I'm hanging up now. Wait. I went to my lawyer and asked for a divorce and alimony. The divorce was finalized and my husband couldn't escape the consequences due to the evidence. He and his affair partner paid me a fair amount of alimony. It turned out that his partner was a junior colleague at his workplace. The news of their affair quickly spread through the company, and the timing during the fire caused a lot of negativity among their colleagues. Both my husband and his partner are now facing cold stares and feeling quite ashamed. They really deserve it. Meanwhile, I moved to a new apartment and am enjoying my comfortable single life. I'm taking my time to find a sincere man and am not rushing into a new relationship. My job as a nurse is stable, and I'm also enjoying my own time. Although I discovered my husband's affair unexpectedly due to the fire at his company, he shouldn't have had an affair in the first place. I would have found out eventually. I believe he got what he deserved. I'm now focusing on enjoying my single life and my work as a nurse.